Hey everyone, welcome back to Underreported Stories, where I cover the news that CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News fail to report on or don't report on enough. So you guys have probably heard me at least say the term story seeker a couple of times on this channel and on the podcast. And Story Seekers is a members only channel on my Instagram. It's completely free. I know members only sounds like, ooh, you gotta pay for it. No, completely free. And it's a place where I'm just gonna ask you questions about what you're interested in me talking about on the podcast. It's really just the best way for us to communicate. So Jonathan in our Story Seekers community wanted me to answer a question. And the question was how to reach the emotional voter. I'm going to answer this question. So thank you, Jonathan, for this. Let me start by how not to reach the emotional voter. And let's be honest, when we're talking about the emotional voter, yes, we might be talking about a handful of men. Don't get me wrong. I definitely see that they exist. But 9 times out of 10, I think we're talking about women, right? Like it's the women that are very emotional voters. And I think it's, the people asking these questions, typically, like Jonathan, are men wondering how to convince women to see their point of view. Because oftentimes, you're right. Like I'm a woman and I see the truth here. But a lot of the times, emotions will get in the way of that. So let me start by just painting the picture for you. So the demographics, they tell us that 63% of women who are voting for Democrats are unmarried. And I'm sure a lot of you guys are blessed and older and married, but let me just describe the culture for you right now. The culture around dating, specifically to women, and you can disagree, but this is how I see it. Online, the culture is you hit 30, you're fugly, you're worthless, you're only hot in your 20s, and also don't complain that no man in their 20s wants to settle down with you. Deal with it. But if no man wants to settle down with you in your 20s and you're 30, doesn't matter, it's still your fault, you're fugly, and you're probably a slut or something. Like that is all the online discourse I see about this topic. And then you couple that with a couple of one-off jokes or poorly tasted jokes about being a sad cat lady.
I'm a childless cat woman, but I'm happy. I'm happy.
And it all just kind of culminates in women being told it's their fault. It's your fault you're a sad cat lady because the dating scene is awful. You have to take accountability for some of it as women. If you're not prioritizing dating in your 20s, please don't be confused when you're in your 30s and you're not married or you're not dating seriously, right? Or you don't have kids or you don't have a family. That's on you. But if you are genuinely and earnestly trying to date in your 20s, I do think that there's an untalked about culture about this epidemic of a lack of intelligent and kind men. There are just men that go out there, they get belligerent drunk every weekend, and I just keep hearing this online discourse like, women are just hoes too, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, maybe it's at least in my own life, I can think of 10 beautiful, God-seeking women in their late 20s who couldn't get arrested to catch a man who is of their true value. Like, they are wonderful and beautiful, and the men that they find are, like, ugly and awful to them. And I wouldn't find, I can't find somebody for them. I wouldn't find one singular person I would set them up with because the ratio of awesome women to awesome men, at least where I live, is whack as fuck. So tee all of that up with like, there are great women. There are even great Republican women out there that are single, that just have the hardest time in this dating scene. And then a culture that says it's your fault for being 30 and single and barren. Okay, tee all of that up to women, the emotional voter, and just know that they're not going to respond well when you kind of are combative with them, okay? Because the truth is the emotional voter, the woman, responds to kindness. We are receptive to truth through kindness, and the culture is really not kind to women. And you don't have to like my answer, but that is my answer. And I saw this really bear out a couple of weeks ago. I went on this podcast called Whatever. There are clips of the show on my YouTube channel. You can go and watch them. But at one point we got to the topic of abortion, and the way the show is set up, the premise of the show is like the host who's like 35 and single, and usually somebody that's going to debate alongside him, and then a couple of conservatives, and then a couple of like potential like OnlyFans models or like crazy people. And on the panel I was on, there was a singer-songwriter. Her name was Riley, and she identified as Catholic with pro-choice views. Now, I know what you think. And I saw what was happening there. Andrew and the host, the men on the panel, were sitting there and they were barraging her, wondering, how can you hold the view that you are Catholic and pro-choice? It doesn't make any sense. And they just started attacking. And nothing was getting through to her. Like, they thought they were, like, roasting her and winning. And, like, that's totally fine. It was good for clickbait. It was, like, good for their show. I'm not saying that they shouldn't have done that. But it wasn't going to change her mind, because emotionally and in the culture that she lives in, being Catholic and being pro-choice makes sense. You can be with me. You can be with Andrew. You can be with Brian, the host. You and I know that that is silliness. But that is a very normal worldly view in female circles. Watch any of these shows, any of these popular podcasts. They will talk about how they're religious or how they're spiritual, but they're very adamantly pro-abortion. This is a view I myself once held. Like, this is a very common view. It is common among conservatives too. Take the Tommy Lahren example, okay?
No, I'm pro-choice, and here's why. I am a constitutional, someone that loves the Constitution. I am someone that's for limited government, and so I can't sit here and be a hypocrite and say I'm for limited government, but I think that the government should decide what women do with their bodies. I can sit here and say that as a Republican, and I can say, you know what, I'm for limited government, so stay out of my guns, and you can stay out of my body as well.
In all of this story that I'm telling you, I explained to Riley very calmly, this is, again, the girl that is Catholic and pro-choice, and I explained it to her through the emotional lens. And what I said to her was, there are general feelings and emotions that we have in society, specifically, too, that abortion is like a normal thing. It's a good thing that we should have because we want to keep women, we want to allow women to have choice, and like the government shouldn't have a say over our bodies because we're conservative, therefore like we're for a limited government. So that line of logic makes sense. And the second thing is that that black people are likely to get shot by police. And or unarmed black men are likely to get shot by police. And basically my line of argument there to her was, we feel like those things are true. But if you actually go and dig into the data about what abortion is, what abortion stands for, what the history of abortion is, and then similarly in terms of like the whole police thing, if you go and look at how many unarmed black men are shot at the Washington Post, like according to Washington Post data, it's not as many as the world and the media would like you to think.
When it's in the womb, no matter how long, does the baby feel?
You're talking about the
abortion?
Gestation of
Yeah,
it?
like, do they feel
it's
it?
actually one of the hardest
understand?
things I've ever had to go through and like witness. I didn't have an abortion. I said that really wrong. But when I was your age, I had the same position as you. Like, of course, I'm conservative, so therefore I'm like somewhat libertarian, and therefore I believe the government should not be involved in what I do with myself or my body, right? It's like actually a really normal line to come through.
Yeah.
But yes, that is why heartbeat bills are wildly important in states all across the nation. They're being passed because at a heartbeat, that is when the baby can feel pain. It's when they have a breathing heartbeat. And when I got her thinking like, hey, I understand you feel that way, but the data actually doesn't align with that. So when I checked out the data, I felt those same things too, but I realized that I was wrong when I read the data. And I noticed, and she told me at the end, that her mind was changed. It wasn't changed from the rage baiting. It wasn't changed from being like,
how the hell could you be Catholic and pro-choice?
It wasn't changed by that. It was changed by someone, a woman, calmly sitting down with her and explaining to her irrationality in her logic. So that was a long-winded answer, but you wanted my honest answer, and that's what I gave you. And if you want to reach your emotional voter, point them to strong women who can speak their language, and perhaps stop taking dating advice or conversational advice from 35-year-old single men who live stream for a living and have man boobs, okay? Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and leave a comment about how beautiful, stunning, and funny I am. And if you want more content based in logic, be sure to click over here for more videos and clips of my show. If you have the means to financially support the show, consider purchasing from my merch line, Based Apparel, linked right below. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you back here next time. Bye, friends.